Alright, good Erev Shabbos, everybody. It's your friend, the Koblenz Ruv. I'm here to learn with you a little Hasidus. We'll learn all together. And usually Friday we like to Acharei the shtickle from the Kedushas Levi. Just passing by the place where I hit the cow, so we'll say once more, Baruch Osali Nes B'Makom Hazeh. So this week's Parsha in Chutz La'aretz, which is most of the world, is Parshas Acharei. So here we go. So let's learn. Very special always to learn the Kedushas Levi, especially because I know my ancestor, the Kruler Ruv, he met the Kedushas Levi. Is a whole story which we've told many times. So we are in the book of Leviticus, chapter 16, verse 1. And the Kedushas Levi comments on the following verse. Acharei mois shnei bnei Aharon bekorvasim lifnei Hashem v'yavusu. Says after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they came close before the Lord, and they died. Right. We spoke about this yesterday from the Heilige Zayda Moral in Prague, and now we'll learn from the Kedushas Levi. Plige. So there's a Plige Tanoi. There's a Tanaic dispute, meaning the Tanaim were the rabbis of the era of the Mishnah until Rabbeinu HaKadosh, until Rav Yehuda Hanossi. Basically, from Shimon Tzaddik was Mishyari Knesset Gedola. From the time of Shimon Tzaddik until Rabbeinu HaKadosh, that is the era known as the Tanaim. And so the individual rabbi from that era would be a Tana. So Plige Tanoi, there's a disagreement, a Tanaic dispute, Reb Eliezer and Reb Yoshua. Very, very famous that they would often argue, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Joshua, on various matters, generally that were Agadic matters. And so we have here, the question is, why did the sons of Aaron die? What sin did they commit that they deserved death? Rabbi Eliezer Sava Shahar Halacha B'nei Rabbah. So Eliezer's opinion was that the sin that they committed is that they rendered a halachic ruling, meaning a ruling in Jewish law, in front of their own teacher, in front of their own Rebbe. They were supposed to defer to him and not be poskening shilas, not be answering questions in Jewish law, because someone who violates that is liable to the death penalty. Rabbi Yeshua Savar Shesui Yayin Nichnesu. Rabbi Joshua's opinion was that they engaged in the avodah, in the worship in the tabernacle after drinking wine, and the law is that the Kohanim, the priests, are not allowed to drink wine until after they perform their avodah, if they're going to perform the avodah, if they're going to perform a worship service, bringing sacrifice, so forth, or even duchening, even lifting up the hands when we recite the Birkas Kohanim. That's why on Simchas Torah, most of the Ashkenazic shuls, the Kohanim duchen by Shachris instead of by Musaf, because the expectation is that by Musaf you're already going to be drunk. So this debate is recorded in the Medrash known as Vayikra Rabbah. It's the Medrash from the book of Leviticus, in the 20th chapter of that Midrash, of that homily, book of collection of homilies. So the Heilige Berditchev Erov Schusig Elinim Gol Salamein, Heilige Levi Yitzchak Mesor Soshem Berditchev, the Sanagorian Shel Yisrael, the the defense attorney of the Jewish people. He comments on this medrash. Tzarich l'das l'man da'amar halacha b'nei Rabban ma'u shene'amar b'kevasim l'fnei Hashem yamusu. So Rabbi Yeshua's opinion that they entered into the sanctuary after drinking wine, well, that is connected to drinking wine when then going in to perform the avoda. So that's what it means. It's connected to what it says that they came before the Lord. They approached the Lord, the presence of the Lord, and then they died. So that makes sense. It's a clear connection. But they said that they rendered a legal decision in the presence of their own master, their own teacher. What connection? How is it that is how they came before the Lord and died? Where is the direct connection? All right, you're going to say, perhaps an idea that you could say is that there's a concept like the Mishnah in Shabbos, that many shuls, they'll say Friday night, Nusach Ashkenaz and the Nusach of the Sfardim, the Edut HaMizrach, have a custom of reciting this Friday night, Bama Madlikin, and many Hasidic on their own might say it, or in some Kehillas that have Ashkenaz roots like Dushinsky, they'll say Bama Madlikin Friday night. They'll say both. They'll say Bama Madlikin and they'll say Kegavna, which I remember Marish Shiva, he said it's Kedai to do both. And that the Bama Madlikin is the halacha. Marish Shiva, Rav Branchmiegel, he should have a big refuah shleima. He said it's worthwhile to say both. He once mentioned, he was a Talmud of Rav Soloveitchik, and Rav Soloveitchik, the Rav of Boston, he said he would give every year a yahrzeit drasha. He would give a sermon to mark his mother's yahrzeit, his father's yahrzeit. I think after his wife passed away, his wife's yahrzeit. And Rabbi Soloveitchik, he once said, Rabbi Branchspiegel, he said like this, he said, perhaps part of the reason why in certain areas the Hasidim were more successful than the Lithuanians, particularly before the war. I mean, now Baruch Hashem, both Kehillas are growing and are succeeding, and they're both beautiful. So a lot of the people that we call Litvaks are really, their ancestors were Hasidim. They're not Lithuanian. It's more appropriate to say the yeshivish world as opposed to literature, because again, a lot of these people, they're families that came from Poland and Hungary and other places, not necessarily Hasidic, but also they weren't Lithuanian. In any event, Rav Soloveitchik was a real Litvak, right? He was from Brisk, even though he had teachers who were Hasidic. How did that come about? That when he was a little boy, and his father went to hire Malamed, and he hired a Lubavitcher Chassid as a Malamed. That's what Rabbi Soloveitchik had. Can you imagine such a thing? So we see, Baruch Hashem, the worlds came together. That it's not the fighting that used to be. We can respect each other. That we have different views in the world. But he said, nonetheless, he recognized, particularly in the past, I would say now, to a certain extent, there's you find good and bad in both worlds. Mostly good. Overwhelmingly, that's batel baroiv, the good. That the bad is batel baroiv against the good. In any event, so Rabbi Soloveitchik said in one of the yahrzeit drushes, he said perhaps the reason why the Hasidim were Matzliach and the Litvaks, the traditional meaning in Lithuania, before the war, there were very few Frum people left. The Frum people were the vast minority. If you're a real Litvak, meaning your ancestry really came from Lithuania, and your family's Frum and everything, that means you come from rabbis. Really, you come from Rabbanim, for the most part. But the common people, they didn't stick with it in Lithuania. Whereas you come from a Hasidic background, you have to go back a little further, right? Sometimes to find a rabbi. Not everybody was a rabbi. And the truth is, though, once, right before the war, like Rabbi Victor Miller pointed out, for the most part, even in the Hasidic places, the Haskalah and other movements already, unfortunately, took their toll. But it was, it was much less. Even if at some point it might have, in some places, might have been the majority. Some of these movements. First of all, most of those people were much more traditional. Even if they became somewhat more modern, they were still very traditional, dedicated in their ways. So there's different things to say. But anyway, let's get to what Rav Soloveitchik said. That when he said, when we are saying Bama Madlikin, we the Litvaks, he was talking of his own background. When we were saying Bama Madlikin, they were saying Rosa de Shabbos. Right? Kagavna, the second paragraph of Kagavna is Rosa de Shabbos, the mystical secret of the Sabbath. But then my Yeshiva said we could say both. We need, Bama Madlikin would be the halacha, and the Rosa de Shabbos, the Kagavna, is the Agadata. So anyway, and I myself, I usually say both. If I'm davening in a shul, they say one or the other, I say it together with them, and I manage to say both. But anyway, in the Bama Madlikin, which talks about the laws of lighting the Shabbos candles, it brings al shloisha averis nasha mesim b'misosim. Nasha mesim b'beis lidotam. That there's 3 sins that when a woman is about to give birth, she could die in childbirth. Rachmana litzlan. The point is, so the Mefarshim say, the Gemara says there, that there's a certain kitruk, Rachmana litzlan, when a person is in a dangerous situation. And so, even if this is not directly connected, that's the time when death could very easily come, is in childbirth, as a retribution, a rectification, a correction, a chance for atonement for one of those sins. How do I pause this? So perhaps that's what Eliezer is saying here, is that they died because that none of an Avihu died. I guess in English say native and Abihu. I don't know. None of an Avihu, they died because of this sin of being halacha b'nei rabba. In fact, the truth is, the current, what we call smicha, right? What we call rabbinical ordination is not the traditional smicha, but rather it's a heter hayrah. it's a permission, it's a license, like lahavdil in some of the Protestant traditions. They're not ordaining priests in most of the Protestant traditions. Rather, what they're giving is a license to minister, right? So essentially, the Jewish ordination of a rabbi is a lahavdil, is a heter hara. It's like a license to minister, but really it's a license to render halachic, render judgments in Jewish law. And there's different levels of what we would call receiving the hara, and that's why it's really also we give a type of a smicha called Rav Umanhig, which is really the license to minister and not necessarily to paskin shilas. And a lot of the yeshivas traditionally gave the Rav Umanhig smicha, and it became actually historically is one of the few things in the RCA, the Rabbinical Council of America, I guess is what the C stands for, Council. They respected Rav Soloveitchik, who we mentioned before. They respected his psak in most things. The question came up is to be a member in the RCA. Is it enough to have a Rav Umanik smicha, which a lot of the yeshivas were giving because they understood that a lot of the rabbis that were going out to serve a community, they could pick up a phone and ask a shaila, and not only that, not too many of the people in America in those days had such difficult shailas to ask, right? And the so anyway, the idea of this of whatever Rav Soloveitchik said it's enough to be a member in RCA. He said it would be enough to have a Rav Umanik smicha, to have the lower level of ordination, the more simple level, and then the second level is more hara, someone who could render judgments in daily living issues, and then the next one is dayanis, to be a dayan, to be a judge, that he could adjudicate in a court case, and he knows choshen mishpat. Whereas the usually heter hara is on your adeya, and these are there are 4 different parts of the Code of Jewish Law. So but in the end, the RCA did not accept that ruling of Rabbi Soloveitchik. Because one of the few things they did that they went against Rabbi Soloveitchik, they said, no, we need at least a Yara Yara. It's not enough just to have Rav Umanhig, whereas the Igud Rabbana, even though I have Yara Yara, but I have 1 Rav Umanhig smicha and 2 Yara Yara smichas. But the Igud Rabbanim, which I am a member of, they do accept the Rav Umanik smicha. So, but if someone has heter hara, essentially their rabbi is giving them permission to paskin shilas. That's what looks like. There's an oil here. Just make sure. Yeah, there's some cars here. Okay. Cars over here too. Yeah. So it looks like there should be a minion tomorrow. So it says, but still, nonetheless, even though what we said with this making the comparison to making a comparison to the in Bama Madlikin, that they entered into a dangerous place, and that's why they died for this previous sin. Perhaps that's what Eliezer is saying. Nonetheless, where's this? If the whole reason that they died is because they failed to ask Moses, so you're missing the main point. But the thing is, nonetheless, this by Rabbi Yeshua's opinion that they were shtuye yayin, that they drank wine, it's also a kasha. It's also a question. If, according to the opinion, that they made a halachic decision, a legal decision, in front of their rabbi without permission, what is the? How do you explain that when they came close before the Lord? Why should it be, if someone rendered a proper halachic decision, a proper decision in Jewish law, why should he be punished for that, even if he did so in the presence of his teacher? So this is something we've discussed this other places. Kedushas Levi actually discusses this in other places. God made different walls in the world, different, levels. If an angel goes to the next level above him, that he's not made for that. He doesn't have the tools to live in such a place, right? He gets burnt up right away. Because there's a concept in Kabbalah of tzimtzum, of constriction, that there's less light of God in these different places, right? So you have the world of the seraphim. The seraphim are angels that are in the form of dragons, kind of like the Chinese dragons, and they're from the world of the Kisei HaKavod, of the throne of glory. And then there's the world of the Chayos, which is a different level of the living beings. They're referred to. The seraphim are referred to in Isaiah, the dragons, and the living beings are referred to in Ezekiel. And then there's the world of the wheels, also referred to in Ezekiel. And Derech Tzimtzum. All of these are in the way of constriction, that there's each world has less of the revelation of God's light than the one that's above it, so to speak. If an angel goes to a higher level than his own level, he just stops existing. He can't exist like that. And this is not only with angels, it's with people too. The Jewish people also. God constricted his divine presence on Moses. And from Moses to Aaron on a lower level, Aaron has a lower level than Moses. And from Aaron to his sons, the sons of Aaron have a lower level than Aaron had. And then from the sons of Aaron to the elders, that's a lower level. And from there to the prophets, a lower level than those elders, and that council of elders, and from the prophets to every Jew. K'maymer Chazal, Kates and Seder Mishnah, Gemara in Eruvin, which I learned not too long ago. Baruch Hashem, thank God. It says that that's how the Torah was delivered. But Aaron's sons wanted to go up higher than their constriction than their level. They didn't ask their teacher Moses. So they went on their own before the presence of the Lord. They wanted to have a direct revelation, which everyone had at Sinai, but then after that they said they didn't want it. So then they said, okay, we're going to go to Moses. And so, but then Aaron's sons were like, no, we want to go back. We want to have that direct revelation. And they didn't want it. They didn't want to have two steps removed, to go from Moses to Aaron, from Aaron to them. There's battle mitzvusam and misrafu, but then you can't exist like that. And so that's why they died. That's why they burned up. V'hu adin b'chol Yisrael. That is the way it is among the entire Jewish people. V'chol dor v'dor, in every generation, Hashem Yisborach tzimtzum shchinasai l'gadol ador. God will constrict His Shekhinah, His divine presence, on the great leader of the generation. And unfortunately, with losing so many great leaders, we lost Reb Nata Greenblatt today, who was so important to small-town American Judaism, to have a real Poisik, a Talmud Chochem, a Gadol, in a place like Nashville, Tennessee. Tremendous loss. And he wasn't only there for Nashville, he was there for the whole Klal Yisrael. Every Jew in the South, other than north of Miami, knew you needed to get something done, a get, Rachman Litzlan, or something like that. You went to Reb Nata. It's a big loss. And we lost Reb Chaim. Tremendous losses. So anyway, Hashem constricts His Shekhinah, His divine presence, on the Gadol Ador, on the leader of the generation, and from him to his disciples, and from them to all of Israel. If someone has the audacity to render a decision in the presence of their teacher, he wants to go higher than his level, from his constriction. He wants to just learn on his own. He wants to go directly to God. He doesn't want to have any intermediary from his Rebbe. Chayv Misa, he's liable to death penalty. Why? Because he's going directly to God. He's not ready for that. And so therefore, of course we can go directly to God in prayer, but I'm just talking about in the mystical sense. We don't need any intermediate prayer, but I'm saying, like, to go and learn and try to figure out things on your own, you're just going to stop existing. That's what it means as they came close before the presence of the Lord. They sought to have a direct connection to God. They didn't want to have to go through a pipe work from God to Moses, from Moses to Aaron, from Aaron to them. And that's why this happened to them. That's what it means. Don't go just any time into the holy place. Every time that's higher than one's own constriction of where he belongs. It's really every day has its own symptom. So therefore, this concept to say that they rendered a decision in the presence of their teacher, what does it mean at any time? What does it mean? Don't go just any time into the holy place. when we have this idea, now we understand what it means. You can't just go on your own. You have to follow an order. You have to follow the rules. You can't just do whatever you want. There's even like at work, they tell us you have to follow your chain of command, and you can't go above that. And when you go above that, and when you get involved in things that are none of your business, if you don't stay in your lane, right? When you're driving, you don't stay in your lane. God forbid you get in an accident, and that's really bad. So you got to stay in your lane. So it's important to understand that, and understand who you are, what you are, when you are. Because the thing is, with all that, see, the mistake they made, so to speak, is that they think if they're not Moshe Rabbeinu, then they're nothing. But it's really just the opposite. It's like the story goes, like the Rebbe Zusha says, I'm not worried. They ask, why aren't you Moses? Why aren't you Avram? Why aren't you Abraham? I'm afraid when they're going to ask, why weren't you Zusha? Right? That's what they're afraid of. Why weren't you you? You know, like the Kusker said, if I am me because you are you, if I am I because I am I, and you are you because you are you, then I am I and you are you. But if I am I because you are you, and you are you because I am I, then I am not I and you are not you. Meaning, when you don't fulfill your own position, you lose your identity, you stop existing. And that's what it means, because they thought, because the truth is they could be, through Moshe Rabbeinu, they could be themselves. Through Moshe and through their father Aaron, they could be themselves. They could be great on their own by doing this instead of, and they won't lose their identity. So that's what's important here. But like this, they just lost their identity. They got burnt up. They stopped existing. There's a song I want to sing. Since I'd like to end with a nigun. It's from the Avodah on Yom Kippur, because we read about Yom Kippur, right? And we read about the Kohen Gadol, what it means. That's what this Parsha is all about. The Kohen Gadol, the first part of the Parsha. How does the Kohen Gadol go into the Kodesh Kodashim? And so I want to sing this song that it really inspires me. It's such an exciting part of the Avodah of Yom Kippur. Maybe let me pause it and then we'll. Ashkenaz has these words, and the song it gets to my heartstrings. I don't have such a nice voice, but I really love this song. So it goes like this. This is when the high priest left the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. Emes man nehedor, haya kohen gadol. Emes man nehedor, haya kohen gadol. B'tzei soy, mi beis kodshei hakdoshim. B'shalom, bli fegam. Ka'ohel hanimtach v'darei mala, ma'arei kohen. Kivrokim hayotzim miziv hachayos, ma'arei kohen. Kegoydel gedilim ba'arba k'tzavois, ma'arei kohen. Kedmus hakeshes b'soiche anan, ma'arei kohen. Emes man nehedor, haya kohen gadol. Emes man nehedor, haya kohen gadol. B'tzei soy, mi beis kodshei hakdoshim. B'shalom, bli pega. Let's see all all the prayers of the Kohen Gadol will be fulfilled. When we read Acharei it's a shtickle Yom Kippur also. Please enjoy a good Shabbos. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. We'll see you all later.